Platinum Games has long cemented themselves as one of the best action game developers of today, so when I saw on their website that they had previously worked on a Legend of Korra game, I knew I had to try it, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it considering the track record of bad Avatar games over the years. I'm a huge fan of the series and have always thought that the Avatar IP would be one of the coolest video game adaptations if done correctly. It wouldn't need to be a direct adaptation of either show, but could instead be a completely original story set before or after the events of The Last Airbender. It pretty much writes itself with the nature of the character being reincarnated with the death of each previous Avatar and having 4 bending abilities to choose from. All that's really needed is the right studio to develop and write the game, and while I think Platinum did a fine job with the gameplay as they always do, the story lags behind. It was written by the writers of the Legend of Korra show, and it's not a bad story, it's just short and underwhelming. The game was a digital-only arcade release back in 2014, and while I don't know this for sure since I didn't do any deep research, I'm guessing they likely fell victim to a rushed development window, especially considering Activision was the publisher. But on the other hand, arcade games aren't usually made to be 30+ hour deep action RPGs, so this could have always been the final product that was going to be released. But regardless, this feels like it has the potential to be a great multi-game series. So with all that said, for what the game ended up being, I think it's a must-play for any fan of the shows. Platinum very much understood the mission of making the player feel like the Avatar. The game is an action brawler, and the combat and movements are fast and responsive, and the ability to switch between water, earth, fire, and airbending is seamless, and the animations are dope. Each style feels unique, and none of them ever felt so OP that I would just spam one over the others. I did have preferences, but usually you're forced to switch it up during battle to defeat certain enemy types and to access different areas throughout the levels. But I was always happy to switch it up because the combat was just so satisfying. And when you do finally unlock the Avatar state, you feel unstoppable. Parrying is also a giant part of the combat, and so by hitting the left trigger right before an attack lands, Korra will counter with a powerful strike. These counters are required if you want to end the battles within a decent time frame, otherwise it could start to feel like a grind, especially with some of the more challenging boss battles. Each element also comes with a set of combos and special moves that help the combat not just feel like a button masher, but more like something that does require a tiny bit of skill. There's also the addition of 2 mini-games that help break up the action in between levels, the Pro Bending Tournament, and a Temple Run style Endless Runner section. The Pro Bending minigame is definitely the more enjoyable of the two for me, but the Endless Runner portions were a neat way of incorporating Korra's polar bear dog Naga into the game. There's also a bit of basic RPG elements included, where Korra can shop at fan favorite Uncle Iroh's spirit shop.
But remember, nothing worthwhile ever comes without a price.
Here you can purchase healing potions, ability enhancers, and those special moves for each bending element that I mentioned earlier. You do have to equip usable items before each level, and on top of that, there's a few different costumes to unlock, which is a nice touch. The story of Legend of Korra isn't just a copy of one of the seasons. The writers of the show actually worked to create a new, smaller scale story that takes place sometime between the 2nd and 3rd season. The game starts with an intense fight in the spirit world where Korra quickly becomes overwhelmed with a number of spirit enemies and is seemingly backed into a corner. From there, there's a flashback to 1 week earlier to see how Korra ended up in this position. After a pro bending match, Korra encounters a chi blocker named Hunden, who in ancient Chinese mythology is considered to be an entity of chaos. Hunden strips Korra of all her bending, and from there you set out to regain your abilities and to stop him. Hunden was previously imprisoned in the spirit world by a past incarnation of the Avatar, but was mistakenly freed by Korra after she opened the spirit portals at the end of season 2. After escaping, he proceeds to unleash chaos into the real world and exact revenge on the Avatar for imprisoning him for all these years. The level designs are well done, and playing through the familiar places from the show really helps with making you feel immersed in the world. You'll travel to Republic City, the Air Temple, the Southern Water Tribe, and the Spirit World. Keep in mind this is a very linear story-driven game, so there isn't a huge open world to explore, but there are a few secrets that can easily be missed if you don't take the time to search for them. The cutscenes look like they're pulled straight from the show, so they look great, and the cel-shaded art style of the gameplay also looks good. And all the characters are voiced by their original actors, and everyone does a fantastic job. The game does suffer from a few flaws, however. Apart from the short story, Legend of Korra also has a pretty wonky camera, and the combat can become pretty tedious fast with the same handful of enemies and bosses that are recycled throughout the whole game. The game also has a pretty bad autosave feature, and I found myself getting annoyed at times having to replay entire sections again. While this would be a major problem if this was a true AAA game, since it was just an arcade exclusive, I think it deserves a pass, and I'd consider some of these problems as more of a nitpick, but they do need to be mentioned. Overall, Legend of Korra is easily the best Avatar game to be released, and that's almost exclusively thanks to Platinum Games. Everything they touch seems to turn to gold, and their track record is pretty much flawless. And I think this game should be looked at as a blueprint for a bigger scale Avatar game. It offers a fast, fun, and responsive combat system that really makes you feel like the Avatar, and although the story is short and underwhelming, it's still very enjoyable to play through, and just getting to see so many of the beloved characters and places again makes this an experience worth playing. So if you're a fan of the series, I highly recommend checking this one out, because I don't think you'll be disappointed. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.